my series of Harry Potter reviews. There's a couple reasons why I'm doing these reviews. One, this is going to be a review series similar to my Star Wars and James Bond series leading up to a new film in the Wizarding World series, and that is Fantastic Beasts 3 in 2022. Not to mention that the other reason is that 2021 marks the 20th anniversary of the release of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone in movie theaters, or Philosopher's Stone, depending on where you live, because we're Americans and we're stupid and we can't figure out what philosopher means. So yeah, it's crazy. Harry Potter was released in 2001 and ended in 2011, similar to another series that I've been reviewing, which is Smallville. So Smallville and Harry Potter have really defined my childhood. These lasted the same exact years, both lasted a decade, and they were two things that I grew up on, and Harry Potter was one of them, and I can't wait to finally talk about Harry Potter on this channel. I finally have a reason. Oh, thank the Lord. So Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone was released on November 16th, 2001, and is based off the really popular book series by J.K. Rowling. This thing was everywhere back in the day. I remember my brother getting all the books for his birthday. I eventually read all the books, and I was so excited when Deathly Hallows came out because I had pre-ordered it. And I love going back now to see what the differences between the books and the movies are, and what liberties they took, and what they added, what they omitted. We're going to be talking about some of that. We're also going to be talking about the differences between the theatrical cut and the extended cut in this. And I want to do a play-by-play of Harry Potter and probably future series to come, but I also am kind of afraid because I feel like I'm going to get copyrighted. But let's get started with Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone or Philosopher's Stone, depending on where you live in the world. The movie begins with a mysterious bearded man walking out of the woods and using this device to pull out all of the lights on the street, and this woman who's a cat that transforms into a lady, and this big giant on a flying motorcycle comes crashing down with a little baby in his arms, and it's little baby Harry Potter, and we get our first glimpses as to what this world has to offer. This is a perfect precursor and setup to the rules and regulations of this world. If you have not read the books, you get your subtle glimpses as to what certain devices in this world can do. It's not until we get later on in the movie where you actually start to learn the actual rules of the trade. This is like our first glimpse as to what this movie is going to entail, especially if you haven't read the book, and it might just interest you if you haven't read the book. And we find out that these characters are Hagrid, Professor McGonagall, and Professor Dumbledore from Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, and they are dropping off little one-year-old Harry Potter off at his aunt and uncle's house. Uncle Vernon and Aunt Petunia and their little pipsqueak son Dudley. Ugh, what awful people, man. Whew, thank God I wasn't dumped on their doorstep, and I believe I'm adopted. Dudley is such a little spoiled brat, celebrating his birthday, and he's complaining about how many presents he has, that he doesn't have enough. There's 36 of them, for Christ's sake. 36, but last year, I want 37. That's another thing about Sorcerer's Stone. I can quote like the first hour and a half of this movie verbatim. It's insane. But we are introduced to Daniel Radcliffe as Harry Potter. And I'll say this, the casting for the Sorcerer's Stone is spot on. The casting for all of these Harry Potter movies is spot on. Daniel Radcliffe as Harry Potter, Rupert Grint as Ron Weasley, and Emma Watson as Hermione Granger. Our trio right there, perfect. All the chemistry in the world. They define their characters from the books, and they're actually really smart. And as adults, you can actually understand where they're coming from. As children, they're supposed to be 11 in this movie. At a point in time, they had this idea to film every single Harry Potter movie as an animated movie and maybe combine different books into one movie, similar to A Series of Unfortunate Events, which, yeah, that didn't go well. But one of the ideas that they had was that they wanted to make it animated to prevent live action casting and having the actors get too old, but they came up with a good strategy where they would film the movies back to back. And so it is a bit strange when you go from this one to Chamber of Secrets to see how low their voices sound, but this casting is spot on. Everybody in this movie for casting is just spot on. Harry is just neglected by his aunt and uncle, and we are finally introduced to Hagrid, played by none other than Valentine Zukovsky himself, Robbie Coltrane. Try up, Dursley, you great prune! You're a wizard, Harry. And it's here where we learn about Aunt Petunia's hatred for her sister and how she views her sister. Her sister was actually Harry's mother.
You knew? You knew all along and you never told me?
Of course we knew. How could you not be? My perfect sister being who she was. Oh, my mother and father were so proud the day she got her letter. We have a witch in the family. Isn't it wonderful? I was the only one to see her for what she was. A freak. And then she met that Potter. And then she had you, and I knew you would be the same, just as strange, just as abnormal. And then, if you please, she went and got herself blown up, and we got landed with you.
Blown up? You told me my parents died in a car crash.
A car crash? A car crash killed Lily and James Potter?
You had to say something.
It's an outrage. It's a scandal.
He'll not be going.
Oh, and I suppose a great muggle like yourself's going to stop him, are you?
Muggle?
Non-magic folk. This boy's had his name down ever since you were born. He's going to the finest school of witchcraft and wizardry in the world, and he will be under the finest headmaster that Hogwarts has ever seen, Albus Dumbledore.
I will not pay to have some crackpot old fool teach him magic tricks.
It's vile and vicious and, just get these people off the screen already. Luckily, Hagrid comes and saves Harry from the Dursleys, but not before they are forced to move to this little shack in the middle of an ocean because Harry keeps getting all his Hogwarts letters and they won't stop coming, and Uncle Vernon's like, that's it! We're going away! Far away! Where they can't find us! And Harry makes, something happen at the zoo where Dudley gets stuck in a boa constrictor's entrapment in the zoo, and that's a pretty hilarious scene. I like that a lot. And when Hagrid takes Harry to Diagon Alley, there's even more magic that begins, and I love, love, love John Williams' score in this scene. His score throughout the entire movie is amazing. His themes that he came up with for this movie, the main theme of Harry Potter, Hedwig's theme, is such a good theme. Dun, 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 dun. It just fits the movie so well. And then Diagon Alley, dun, 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 just the hustle and bustle of Diagon Alley, and just Harry in amazement as to what he's seeing. More of this world is introduced. And it's so well done. And it all comes to life because of John Williams' brilliant themes. I have to commend John Williams so much because he's done so many different movies like this. Like, he could easily fall into the traps of replicating some of his other films and the scores from those other films. But he doesn't. Any franchise that he gets his hands on, he is able to create something that feels unique to that movie or that franchise. Harry Potter does not sound similar to Jurassic Park, nor does the music in Jurassic Park sound similar to Star Wars. You can definitely tell that it's a John Williams scored movie, but you would never find some of the musical motifs that you would find in a Star Wars movie in a Harry Potter movie. He just makes everything fit so well. And Diagon Alley scene is one of my favorite scenes in all of the Harry Potter movies. I just remember sitting in the theater as a 7-year-old, amazed and being like, man, I wish that this world existed. And that's the thing. They're setting up this world, and you just wish that this existed in real life, but it doesn't. Well, I mean, it sort of does if you go to Universal Studios, but that doesn't count. I want to go to Hogwarts. Real life Hogwarts. I've always loved the scene in Ollivander's wand shop where Harry's going through all the different wands and finally finds the right wand because the wand chooses the wizard, Mr. Potter. Yes, I am holding a wand, and just in case you're wondering, I got this at Universal Studios, and this is Professor Snape's wand, and it's an amazing wand because Snape is the bravest man in the Harry Potter series. Speaking of Snape, we have to talk about Snape for a minute. Alan Rickman. Rest in peace, man. There will be no incessant wand-waving in this class. Yet then again, some of us have come to Hogwarts to not pay attention. See, I know the whole movie verbatim. It's crazy. We are presented with a bit of an info dump as to who Harry is, with him and Hagrid in the scene in the leaky cauldron. Luckily, that doesn't last long. We find out that Harry's parents were killed by this Dark Lord named Lord Voldemort. And he tried to kill Harry, but the spell rebounded and it didn't kill Harry, and that's why he has this lightning bolt scar on his head, and that's why everybody knows his name, because he is the boy who lived when Voldemort tried to kill him, and now Voldemort is so feared that you can't say his name. And I think that that's such a good idea for a villain. Like, this villain who is so menacing and so feared by the wizarding community that nobody has the guts or the confidence to say his name or stand up to this guy. He's not even in this movie all that much. He shows up at the end for about like 10 minutes. And that's saying something about how this movie handled everything. We get to the Hogwarts Express and we're introduced to Ron and Hermione. I've talked a little bit about them, and then we get to Hogwarts and we're introduced to even more characters like Draco Malfoy. Slime ball. I just want to... Hogwarts is a place where Harry can feel at home, and I love that idea where it's like, if you feel alone, there are other places that will make you feel welcome in the world. I think that that's a great message. But from here on out, the rest of the movie basically follows the book verbatim, which is in a way a detriment to this movie, because you have to fill so much of this movie with setting up this world, and at times it feels like it's going nowhere. It takes a good 98 minutes in the theatrical cut. If you're watching the extended version with the deleted scenes added in, 105 minutes for them to actually acknowledge the Sorcerer's Stone, which is insanity to me. But it's because they're setting up all these rules of the world and all the tools of the trade and everything that you have to go by. For instance, like, you have 4 houses. You have Gryffindor, Slytherin, Ravenclaw, and Hufflepuff. They're treated like your family. Your triumphs earn your house points. If you break the rules, your house loses points. Then you get to see the different types of classes that are at Hogwarts. It's just such a well-rounded, fleshed-out world, but at the same time, it does take a bit away from the plot of the actual movie. When we start to learn about Nicholas Flamel and the Sorcerer's Stone, it does take a little bit to get there. And the Quidditch scene in this movie is fun, but it does have that early 2000s CGI or that like late 90s CGI where they weren't quite there. You can tell that they're just balloon people. And then something I've noticed on multiple rewatches is that there's a copy and paste error. The same character that's on the Gryffindor Quidditch team is actually the keeper on the Slytherin Quidditch team, which is a major continuity error and a major CGI error for the time. Chris Columbus himself has said that he wasn't impressed with the visual effects for this movie. I'm gonna take these off now. There's a big glare. I was wearing glasses because I thought I was Harry Potter. But I understand, this is an early 2000s movie. However, even though the CGI is shoddy, there is good use of practical effects in this movie, like the goblins and Gringotts when Harry and Hagrid go to Gringotts at the beginning. The costuming, the makeup, all of it is extensively well realized, and these creatures stand out easily. There's no confusion as to what certain creatures are in this world. And I actually will say that I think that the mountain troll sequence where Harry and Ron go to rescue Hermione in the bathroom, I actually think that mostly the CGI in that sequence is better than the Quidditch sequence, which is strange. Because even then it's not that great, but I just don't understand how they put a little bit more visual effort into that scene than they did in the Quidditch scene. Going back to the Quidditch scene for a minute too, I just have to say something. Harry is the seeker of the Quidditch team. Look, I get it's Harry's first Quidditch game, so he's taking it all in, but he's the seeker. Why is he just sitting around on his broom, floating in one space, just watching the match play out? Like, go and get the golden snitch, buddy. Like, come on. Like, you just see, like, Slytherin scores, and you just see him go, Like, he's so mad. Like, dude, the golden snitch is flying around. Do you want Gryffindor to lose? You get 150 points if you win. I mean, you can still lose, even if you get the golden snitch. The books established that. So, yeah, why don't you go, get the golden snitch. Let the keepers worry about keeping that quaffle out of the hoops and let the beaters hit the bludgers around. I get it, you're playing Slytherin, it's your first game, but dude, you have a job. Go do it. It's like if a baseball player just just steps into the batter's box and just stands there and is just taking in the sights and sounds of the fans, and the pitcher's like, dude, come on, step into the batter's box, do your little batting stance thing so I can throw the ball to you and, yeah, hopefully get you out because now I'm pissed. Essentially what the Sorcerer's Stone leads up to is the fact that Harry, Ron, and Hermione actually uncover this secret within Hogwarts that this three-headed dog named Fluffy is guarding this object called the Sorcerer's Stone, which is the elixir of life.
It means you'll never die. I know what it means.
Which could prolong somebody's life, and that's why Nicholas Flamel has lived for almost 600 years. And they believe that a Hogwarts teacher named Professor Snape, who I've mentioned before, played by Alan Rickman, is actually trying to steal the stones. So the three kids actually team up to try and prevent Snape from stealing the stone. But in reality, it's actually the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, Professor Quirrell, because he is a man with two faces. He's got a face on the back of his head. Oh my God, that was scary as a kid. Holy shit! He's got Lord Voldemort on the back of his head, and there's a scene earlier in the movie where we see this hooded figure in the Forbidden Forest drinking unicorn blood, and that is Voldemort's way of staying alive, and we learn that Voldemort is able to attach himself to a living human host. And that is the only way he can survive. And we have this whole face-off with Voldemort and Quirrell, and it gets even scarier for little kids. My God, why are they doing face melting? This is like Raiders of the Lost Ark stuff, but for kids. Jesus.
What is this magic?
He just crumbles into rocks, man. And he goes through Harry, and Harry falls over, and now one of my old neighbors told me something which I don't know if it's true. I don't really believe it. But what he told me is that, and I guess you could say that this is his fan theory, that if Harry did not have the Sorcerer's Stone, in that moment, he would have died. Which doesn't make all that much sense to me because it's like, well, it's the elixir of life. Which, I don't know. Does it make sense to me? I don't really buy that theory. I don't know why he told me that. I don't think it would have mattered. I don't know. Now I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, but the Sorcerer's Stone is the elixir of life. It prolongs your life. But at the same time, how does having the stone matter?
Not to mention that we find out later in the film that Dumbledore says the greatest gift that Harry had was the love of his mother, and that was why Voldemort couldn't touch him. And I feel like that's why he defeated Voldemort, so I don't think it would have mattered if he had the stone in his hand or not. I don't really find any merit to my neighbor's old fan theory. I think we get that answer when Dumbledore says, love just trumped Voldemort.
Could be just speaking out of my ass here. Who knows? School year ends. Gryffindor falls into last place for the House Cup, but then they end up winning because bonus points for, people because they're just cool. Dumbledore's like, you're just cool. Yeah. I was gonna give you bonus points for your house because, you're cool and, you're brave. So, Gryffindor wins. I always remember my mom doing the math in that scene where she's like, so 50 would give them 372, another 50 would get, or 362, another 50 would give them 412. They are tied with Slytherin, aren't they? And then Harry gets to go home and we have the Leaving Hogwarts theme, and it's so sad because I kind of want to cry at the end because it's dun, 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 dun. As Harry hugs Hagrid and Hermione tells Harry that they're going home, and he's like, I'm not going home, not really, which means Harry has found his place in the world, and he can't wait to come back next year. wow, the Sorcerer's Stone. Yeah, it's got great casting. I mean, the trio itself is amazing. There are some outdated special effects. I will say, it uses CGI when it has to use CGI, and it uses practical effects when it has to use practical effects. The rest of the casting is spot on. Alan Rickman as Snape is amazing. Robbie Coltrane as Hagrid, perfect. I haven't even talked about Maggie Smith as Professor McGonagall. My God. She is like the perfect person you would want to read you a bedtime story. She just got that grandmotherly voice. She's stern, but she cares for you. That's what I love. I just love this entire world, how they set this entire world up, how it translated from book to screen, and I just love the little moments of darkness that this movie presents, like the drinking the unicorn blood scene, the entire third act, where Harry, Ron, and Hermione have to go through a set of challenges to get to the place where the Mirror of Erised is, and things like the Mirror of Erised and Diagon Alley and the Mountain Troll and Defense Against the Dark Arts and Quidditch just make this world feel alive. And as a viewer, things like this make you wish that this world existed in real life. To an extent, it does if you go to Universal, but that doesn't count. You want to be able to cast spells. You want a wand to choose you. You want to go to Hogwarts yourself. And somehow the movies captured the magic that the books presented and described and made you, as you're watching it, just be in complete awe of this place and this world. The movies somehow did it. Again, I do have some issues with The Sorcerer's Stone. It's not the best Harry Potter movie. I mentioned some of the outdated CGI, and it does fall into the trap of just setting everything up as a first movie in a franchise like this should, but I think at the same time, it does follow too much of the book verbatim. There are some omissions and some things are changed around, but just about following the book verbatim is a bit of a detriment to this movie, especially when it comes to the introduction of the main plot. However, I cannot wait to talk about the rest of these movies with you guys. I'm going to do letter grades for classic reviews like this instead of the popcorn ratings, so I am going to give Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone an A-. Stay tuned for more Harry Potter reviews coming very soon. I cannot believe it's been 20 years since this movie was released. Holy shit. God damn it, I am old. Thank you guys for beginning this journey with me, and let's hope that the magic continues in my next reviews as well. You guys are the best. Thank you for watching. My name is Alex Madden, and I'll see you at the movies somewhere.